All right, hi everyone. Thanks so much for joining today, and welcome to Blue Triangle's product training. So we're going to go ahead and get started. In today's session, we'll be discussing Blue Triangle's new executive KPI report. So this report provides a site-wide overview of key performance metrics and how they've been changing day by day or week over week. And you can create one or more of these reports for your site or sites, and you can customize the report in a variety of ways to fit your needs. All right, so my name is Mark, and I'm the support manager here at Blue Triangle, and we do these training sessions on Thursdays just about every week on general web performance topics and really how to take advantage of all Blue Triangle has to offer. So let's go ahead and get started. So kind of a basic overview real quick. Obviously, the executive KPI report is the focus of our training today. We'll discuss what information is available in the report, and then we'll kind of go through each of the various widgets that make up the report and discuss what information is displayed in those graphs, tables, etc. And then once we've kind of gone through how the data looks in the report and how to interpret it, we'll finish up with a quick walkthrough on how to actually configure one of these new reports for yourself. All right, so I'm going to dive right into Blue Triangle here right now. We'll get kicked off here. So this page, the executive KPI reports, this can now be found if you've used Blue Triangle regularly. You may have noticed we have this new section here for executive reports. We've put our digital experience overview in this tab. It used to be you could just click on this icon here, but we've added it here as a menu item as well. And but today we're talking about the executive KPI report, and you can get to that here. This should be enabled for everyone, but if you don't see this in your view as you log into Blue Triangle, just reach out to your customer success managers from Blue Triangle, and they'll be happy to help get that sorted out for you. All right, so like I mentioned, you can create multiple of these, and I've already created one here called Mark Demo Report, and essentially this is just taking the default configurations and hitting Generate Report. But you could select from other options here in this drop down. You can also edit the report configuration with that wrench icon. But as far as what's going on here in this report, it's basically showing, I kind of mentioned in the beginning, but it's showing key performance metrics over a look back period of either weeks or days. Weeks is a nice feature. It's actually something that is currently unique to this page, being able to look at data grouped by week, and you can specify the start day of the week in the configuration. So we're looking at the last 8 weeks, week over week, and the focus week here is listed here. The focus week is always going to be the most recent complete report interval. So this is the most recent complete week. Now, listed here, you're going to see some filters or kind of settings for the configuration of the page and the filter options. There's not a lot here just because I chose all the default options. And one thing to note is the default statistical method is going to be the 75th percentile. Okay? In addition to the report interval, the focus week, and the look back period, another very important aspect of this page is the highlighted metric. In this case, it's timed interactive. And as you can see across this page or report, it's literally highlighted, so it kind of stands out, and it shows in many widgets on its own. So you'll learn shortly why it's important, other than this highlighting. First of which is it has its own dedicated widget up here. So in this top widget, we're looking at the timed interactive for the focus week, as well as the week prior, and also for the entire 8-week look back period. Now, the shading here and the shading of the color of the text here is going to follow the thresholds here listed in the metric definitions. Again, I'll set up all of these just as the defaults, but you're welcome to change these. And while I'm at it over here, you can also edit the definitions by clicking over here to the right of the definition. And this is just so, if you have executives looking at this, it's helpful to maybe clarify this importance of a particular metric, or word it in a way that is more consumable to executive folks looking at this report. So, but back over here to the highlighted metric tab, widget. That's kind of what we're looking at over here to the left, and then over to the right, our focus week. We can see kind of a traffic distribution showing how much data how many page views or hits have responded with a time to interactive of in the good area, or in the needs improvement area, or in the poor area. And you can see the requirements for those kind of performance thresholds here. And as you're hovering over this, you can see exact number of hits or page views that make up. There's 10 million, 10.5 million, and out of 17.3 million ended up in the good threshold. Okay, so coming down here to the next widget, the top cards, what we're looking at is basically the exact same information up here, just listed out for each of the selected metrics. So that's another thing that you can configure, is like what metrics you want to have listed here in the top cards. You can choose up to 6. And you may have already noticed, I think I meant to mention this earlier, but the report is actually broken out by device naturally. So we're looking right now at the desktop data, but you could also flip over to mobile or tablet just by clicking these things up here. All right, and again, you'll see some red here, some green. This shading is all based upon the thresholds for each of these metrics defined right here. All right, so moving down the page, there is a roll-up table. You can see the highlighted metric here and the rest of the metrics. And basically, it's showing you the performance for the metric during the focus week, as well as the week prior. And then we're looking at the percent change between the focus week, or the week prior and the focus week, as well as the absolute change. And then we also see the overall 8 weeks compared to the focus week, and then the percent change for that, as well as the absolute change for that. You'll notice some shading here as well. If the percent change is 15% better or 15% worse, it'll appear as green or red respectively. You can see an example down here, and you can see that right there in the legend. All right. And the next widget is the metric trends. And I'll kind of talk about both of these together. And then there's also the metric score and trends. So these are basically line graphs showing the metrics over the report interval. So in this case, each week. And up in the top graph, we're looking at the metrics that are typically measured in seconds. And in the bottom graph, we're looking at the metrics typically measured in milliseconds, or if they are a score, such as cumulative layout shift. All right. And so we also have the most recent partial report interval as a data point over here to the right, so you can get an idea of how things are going currently. Another cool thing is, as with all of our graphs, you can toggle on and off these lines. And another cool thing is you can enable page views as this shaded area on the graph to look at how performance changed with page views. You can do it down here as well. All right, so the top 5 pages widget is next. This is basically a traffic distribution over time. So we're looking at a traffic distribution for in this case, it's only for the highlighted metric, which is TTI in this case. And most recent dates above, and then kind of going back in time as we go down. And basically you can see for the top 5 pages by traffic volume or page views on your site, how the performance has been. And you can hover over to see the performance for each page. And then over to the right, you can see the sum of the average performance for each of those pages. So for example, the product detail page, PDP, is making up 6.95 seconds of the total 20.4 seconds. And you can also see how many hits or page views occurred during this time period as well. So that's a pretty cool graph, and you can kind of see as things change over time. Like it looks like here we saw this category virtual turn background seemed to really jump or slow down a bit in performance here over the last month or a little more. So another thing over to the right is the conversion rate during each of these weeks. The conversion rate doesn't have it doesn't matter what pages are going to be selected here. The conversion rate is just a site-wide number. So these conversion rates would remain the same regardless of what pages are the top ones. All right, and then essentially we got the same graph over here to the right, except for instead of the top 5 pages, we're looking at all of the pages that make up a real user path. And you can, if you don't have one of these configured, you can set one up. There's a link to set one up in the configuration for this report. But you basically just choose one of your real user paths, and you get the same view where you can see the total average performance for all of the pages over here to the right. And then if you hover over, you can see the performance for the individual pages, as well as how many page views occurred during that particular week. And then same thing over here to the right, we see the conversion rates for that week. Alrighty, so the last 2 widgets on this report are the traffic distribution and aggregate trend. So the traffic distribution is just an overall distribution of traffic for the highlighted metric. So we're looking at right now there have been in the most recent or in the current week Actually, there have been 73% of page views where timed interactive was loading less than or equal to 3.83 seconds, right? And then you can see 24% were in this needs improvement range, and then 3% were in the poor area. So it's another nice visual graph to see, kind of how things have been changing over time. It looks like our TTI has slowly become, over the last month and a half, has become less and less performant. All right, and last one here, the aggregate trend. So here we're just looking at the performance over each week, performance week over week for the 75th percentile. Obviously the shading is going to follow these conditions here. And if you hover over, you can see the 75th percentile for the timed interactive during this particular report interval, or week in this case, as well as how many page views have occurred. And again, you can see how TTI has slowed by about a second in the last month and a half or so. All right, so that's kind of everything that's on the page, and the mobile and the tablet tabs are going to have the exact same widgets. It's just going to be the data is displayed for that particular, traffic coming from those particular devices. All right, so the last thing I'll show you guys is how to actually configure a new report. You can click here. There's also a button inside of this little report manager to click to configure a new report. We'll just click here. The first thing I want to do is give it a name. I'm going to just call this Mark Demo Report 2. Time zone, report interval is weekly or daily, and you can choose up to 14 weeks, or you can choose up to 14 days. And you'll notice this focus date here will update depending on what you've selected. For weekly, you get to configure the start of the week, which is Sunday by default, but you can set that to Monday or the way you typically look at a week. All right. So the next tab, metrics and widgets. So up here is actually going to be where you choose all of the metrics. So the highlighted metrics down here, but we'll get to that in a second. The metrics and targets you're able to choose 6 of them, and the options are available here. Now, these are all going to show up on like this top cards widget that I showed, as well as the metrics and scores over time line graph. So that's kind of an idea of where you'll see this information in the report. The statistical method, percentile is our default at the 75th percentile, but you can also use arithmetic or geometric mean. Now, to choose the highlighted metric, you simply just need to click the star next to the metric, and that's going to actually be a pretty important metric. It's going to be the focus for several different widgets on the report. And we have some default thresholds here that you can configure. So there's the good threshold and the needs improvement threshold, and then anything greater than that would be in the poor area. You can mess around with it, but then if you kind of find that you figured you don't even remember what the default was, or you just want to go back to the default, you can just reset, and that'll send them back to the defaults. Alrighty, the last thing here is filters. So you can actually go in and run this report for any set of filter options. So maybe a particular A/B segment, new visitors or returning visitors. The traffic segment, really any of the or any kind of custom categories as well. So it's a pretty powerful report, and you can see the capability is pretty significant. All right, so once you set all your filter options, I won't choose anything. Actually, I'll choose. No, what will I choose? You can actually go back to different. I think there's a traffic segment called e-commerce, and I'll choose that. Let's see, where's the traffic segments? Yeah. Let's do US and that one. And I'll just hit save configuration. And you'll get this little running report message, but it doesn't take very long. Like that just took maybe 8 seconds or something like that. It can take maybe up to 30 seconds depending on, how much data you're looking at and things like that, but it's generally pretty quick. So here's our, actually, you need to go back in and choose it. So here's our Mark demo report 2. And, the initial queries are going to be a bit slower, but once the data loads, there's a lot of caching that goes on, so things will load much quicker afterward. Let me just refresh the page here. Okay, great. Cool. So you can see, the report interval, the focus week, the look back period, and then here are our traffic segments that we selected. And this is the report. All right. Now it's currently we have the beta tag on it. That should be getting removed in a little while. But if you're we invite you to go and play around with it and see if you like the report. And if you find any issues or have any questions, definitely feel free to reach out to support, and we're happy to help. Any issues you find, we'll have them corrected very soon, and we should be able to help answer any questions that you have as well. Now, one last thing I'll point out, we have a help article on this. You can get to our help center by clicking that question mark icon. And if you just search for executive KPI report, this first one here, we have a help article on here that kind of outlines a lot of the information I just went over, configuration, and then information for each of the widgets. So definitely check this out if you have any more questions. All right. So that's gonna about wrap it up for today's session. I'm going to check the actually I'm gonna open back up the slides, and I'm gonna go ahead and check the chat and the questions and see if there's anything I can help answer for you guys. All right, so I know a few questions came in through the chat, and I tried to answer all the ones I could, and there's one more that came in just a minute ago from Annabelle. If there is no way to download or email this report, the way to share it to other areas so they can check it on a regular basis would be to grant access for those people, or what would I advise? So currently the only way to access it would be to log into Blue Triangle's portal and just go right to that page. I mentioned it in another comment that I believe there's a share feature that is going to be. I'm not sure when it will be implemented, but I know it's part of the. It's on the roadmap. So I can also just kind of run through a couple of these questions that I also answered. So there's a question from Meredith about how did you decide that 15-cent percent is the right indicator for that roll-up table. And let me just open up this again. We can scroll down. Yeah, she says, just curious if there's a best practice surrounding that that we might want to apply to other views of metric change in our performance reporting. So yeah, that's a great question. 15% in this case is it's a static number for everyone. The team here came up with 15%, relatively arbitrarily, but it is. I think they just decided it was generally a uh, significant amount of change, and it should be highlighted. But as far as what you want to set these kind of thresholds for, it's really if you can do it by metric, that would be ideal. And if you could do it by like page or something like that, that might also be helpful. You can also, I think it's also unique by site. Some sites are a little more volatile in terms of page performance, so that's another thing to keep in mind. But ultimately, all of this shading can be the thresholds that make up this shading, and the colored text is all configurable as I showed, and you can see what those thresholds are here. Let's see. I think that was essentially everything that came in. Oh, one more thing I actually forgot to discuss because it kind of hides in the report configuration is the another question just came in. I'm gonna just mention this really quick. If you scroll down on the second tab here, there's the top X pages widget. You can actually choose how many of the top pages, so either top few or all the way up to 10. And then here in the custom pages widget, this is where you would actually choose that real user performance path. And if you don't have one set up, you can just click this link to configure a new one. And it's a pretty straightforward process. So another one from Annabelle, we don't have the executive report feature enabled. Yes, so I would recommend you contact your admin in Blue Triangle. So it sounds like you don't know who that person is. I can look that up quickly and send a note to you directly right after this. Thanks everyone very much for joining the session today. And if you do have any more questions, we're always happy to speak with you offline. So feel free to reach out to us anytime. You can reach us here in support, of course, at support@bluetriangle.com. And you can also head on over to our help center at help.bluetriangle.com and submit a request or a question from there. All right, guys, thanks again for your time. And we look forward to seeing you all next time. Have a great day. Thank you.